Our correspondent, John Cookson, our senior correspondent, is right there to bring us details of all of this that's happening. John, so good to have you. So if you can hear me, John Cookson.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so can you just bring us up to speed on the latest development after the coronation and what's been going on at the moment at the Buckingham Palace?
Well, the latest development is I've just noticed over my shoulder that the Royal Standard isn't flying there anymore. Now, the Royal Standard flies when the King is in residence. It's been replaced with the Union flag. So presumably Charles and Camilla have now left Buckingham Palace, maybe to go to Clarence House, which is just round the corner where they both lived. And they will continue to live, actually, following the coronation. There's no plans by Charles and Camilla to move permanently into Buckingham Palace, which is just undergoing a $10 million refit at the moment, and the whole thing will take about 5 years, and they're halfway through renovating Buckingham Palace. So Charles and Camilla, what a day. I mean, it was just an incredible day of pomp and circumstance, and you can see people milling behind me, and I have to tell you, it's absolutely tipping it down with rain at the moment. People are getting soaked. But they don't seem to care. They want to be here and they were here for a historic moment earlier today when a new chapter in the royal heritage of the United Kingdom opened, and we saw this amazing ceremony at Westminster Abbey. Westminster Abbey, a church, of course, which is 1,000 years old, in a ceremony that's 1,000 years in the making. And the highlight for me was the religious element to it, where Charles was anointed with sacred oil from the Mount of Olives, Camilla too, and then, of course, the crowning with the St. Edward crown, which is only used for coronations of kings and queens, and Camilla was also crowned, and we saw those images all day today here on Arise News. Well, I'm joined by Seyitan. Atigarin, welcome to London, Seyitan. Good to see you. Now, you were down at the Abbey earlier, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
What was the highlight?
I mean, I think I agree with you, John. The fact that this event was very steeped in religion and very, regalia-heavy event. I mean, we were talking about how King Charles III was anointed by the Archbishop of Canterbury, and then, of course, the tradition behind it. We're looking at thousands of years of tradition, and just seeing that, the last coronation was 70 years ago, and now a lot has changed. I mean, we didn't have, we were not able to do lives like this 70 years ago. We were not even here all those years ago. But seeing that, and then what was also a highlight for me was seeing that Pledge of Allegiance that Prince William had to give his father. And I could see that it was a very emotional moment for him, because in doing that, you can see that he's almost taking a peek into his future, because he's going to be in that seat, I don't want to say very soon, but in that seat as soon as possible. And then the fact that Prince George was there as well. So you're looking at the dynamics between grandfather, father, and son, and what that also means, how that plays out with the royal family and today's coronation.
I think you make a good point there. I mean, Charles is 74 years old, so to an extent, he's changing the monarchy for the people in the UK. He's also changing the monarchy. He has to adapt for the Commonwealth criticism as well, which has been of late. But also, he's a transition monarch for William.
Yes.
And talking of his sons, of course, Harry was in the Abbey, sitting with other members of the royal family, but then he made a quick exit and is on his way back to California. Did you see him leave?
Actually, I have a video of him leaving. You could see that he dashed out in a hurry, and of course he couldn't be here with his wife and his 2 children. But what we're being told is that he's making his way back to America. They're 6 hours behind, so hopefully he can catch up on the time.
But such an opportunity missed to heal the rift between him and his father. Do you not think?
I mean, there are 2 ways to look at it. I think the fact that Meghan isn't here might have been a good thing, in the sense whereby it's not necessarily a distraction from what today is supposed to be about, which is supposed to be about the coronation of King Charles III and the Queen, no longer the Queen consort, the Queen Camilla. And if her being here, I think the media might have been focused on trying to understand the micro aggressions between, Prince Harry and Prince William and Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle. So today was about celebrating the king and queen, and I think that was the right focus. However, for the children, the fact that their cousins were here, I don't think Buckingham Palace would have been a bad place to throw a party, do you?
Now, people come from all over the world for this. I mean, you can't get a hotel room in London at the moment. But how much interest is there in Nigeria in what happens to the royal family here? I
mean, before I came here, I did a bit of a poll trying to find out what was going on in the minds of Nigerians. And what I found was the older generation, so I'm talking about from about 45 upwards, were the ones that were really keen as to seeing this, because you remember this is something that happens almost once in a lifetime. So they were very keen on seeing this. But the younger generation, from about 40 downwards, 35, the teenagers, didn't really understand why it was such a big deal. The fact that we know that when Queen Elizabeth II passed away back in September, King Charles was already king. He did the Ascension ceremony 2 days after. So looking at the fact that this in itself was more of an official confirmation of his royalty, of his kingship, with spending all of that money as well, especially with everything that is going on in Britain right now. A lot of younger people were not necessarily happy that they had to go through all of this. But when I look at both ends and I look at the fact that this has been happening for thousands of years, we can't just ignore tradition because the left side doesn't agree with it.
Sure. Now, we talked about tensions within the Commonwealth, and do you think that today's ceremony and the spectacular nature of it and the significance of it will change any minds of countries, for example, like Australia, who might be thinking of becoming a republic and breaking away from the Commonwealth?
I mean, we do know that republicanism...
Let's stand in out of the rain, shall we?
Okay, we do know that republicanism is a threat to the British monarchy and the Commonwealth as a whole. And looking at Australia, they've tried to push that referendum, numbers of times, but we're still having that. They missed it narrowly the last time. But if we bring it down to Nigeria, which is where I'm from, and we look at what the advantages and the disadvantages, I would say that there are more advantages for nations like Nigeria when it comes to environmental protection and trade. We're looking at members of the Commonwealth being able to trade at least 9% lower than the rest of the other countries. So with our history and with what we have going on, and let's not forget that the Commonwealth is also very big on human rights as well, and those are some of the key factors that Nigeria still struggles with. So in a way, being part of the Commonwealth is still important to the history and to the people. However, it's about threading that needle very carefully, where it doesn't, because there are people that would look at it and say the history of the monarchy is not looked at by the rest of the Commonwealth nations the same way the Brits look at it, the 14 realms of the Commonwealth look at it, because of the colonial rule and how that has affected the country in times past.
Now, I've met Prince Charles. I've been lucky enough to meet him a couple of times, and I know him to be a person who loves his country. He's a very, very sincere man. We know that he cares about the environment, and he's intelligent, and he's very thoughtful man. Do you agree that whatever problems that he might have in the future with the UK people or with the Commonwealth, that he's likely to succeed? Do you think that's possible?
Situations like this, only time can tell. But if I'm looking at his life and his history, you were just talking about how much of a big supporter of the protection of of the earth, of the world. This is something that he started way back, even before it became a popular...
And now it's become mainstream.
Exactly.
He was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
He was ahead of his time. So when I look at situations like this, I mean, he's been waiting for this almost his whole life. He's lost his mom. He's, I don't want to say lost Prince Harry, but, he's been through so much of the scandal with, Princess Diana, and then the scandal with even...
But the problem is, I mean, you mentioned Harry. I mean, there may be some more manure coming... his way
very soon.
And there's unpredictable things that happen, like the fire at Windsor Castle. All of these things can come out of the blue for someone like Charles in the future?
Well, with someone whose history has been marred with a lot of, I'll say a lot of negativity, but still some positive things, he's been able to handle it really well with grace and poise. So I think going forward and having...
don't forget, Camilla is now by
that's what I was going to say, that Camilla is now by his side, so he has the support system that he needs, he has the support structure he needs. And like I was talking about Prince William, who had pledged his allegiance, that's also, his son saying that, you know what, Dad, no matter what, I have your back. And when you have that, you can really conquer the world, don't you think?
The other thing that struck me today was Charles looked a little bit old. I mean, I know he's 74 years old.
He's 74, come on.
But if you've seen him recently, he looked younger. But today, he just seemed, maybe it was the gravity of the moment that made him look a bit grayer, perhaps.
I mean,
but Camilla looked fantastic, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Well, we can't really tell what happens behind closed doors, but I can imagine such a day like this. He probably didn't get too much sleep last night.
I'd like to have been in the Golden Coach when he and Camilla left Westminster Abbey. The conversation there.
What could have been what they could have been talking about, right? I know. But one thing about King Charles, regardless of how he looks or how he feels, the fact that he showed up and he showed out, and you could just tell when he was entering the Westminster Abbey Cathedral and he was looking around, you could just tell that he's wanted this moment for such a long time, and it's finally within his reach, and he's been anointed as king. So he's going to have a lot of time to rest, but for today he had to just be there for his people.
And we were here, and I will always remember it. I'm sure you will always remember it.
Definitely. History was made today.
History was made. There you go, Sambo. And it is raining on the parade at the moment, but, this is England, so that's what happens here. Sambo.
Yes, our special correspondent John Cookson. But just before I let you go, I just wanted to talk about Republic, the anti-monarchy group, and some of those people who were arrested, with some of them having placards showing "Not My King," and some saying "Privatize the monarchy" and all of that. What's been happening with the remaining members of the group?
I'm glad you've raised that point, and Sambo's asking about people who were arrested today. Now, there was a small demonstration of about 2,000 protesters. They're anti-monarchists, and they represent a party called Republic, and in fact, the leader was arrested today, which was something of a surprise, because the cops earlier this week said that they would take not a lenient view, but they would allow protests because this is a democratic country and it's open, it's free. Were you surprised that they were arrested?
Oh yes, I was very surprised, especially because the security minister, the cabinet minister had come out to say that they would allow people protest. It was their liberty to protest, and the law was very specific because it said it was going to give a 12-month sentence to those who were obstructing the coronation, and a 6-month sentence or an indefinite fine to those who had maybe locked themselves to buildings or orders. So it was very surprising to see that he was arrested, and to even see protesters who had their placards being seized. This is supposed to be a democratic government. People are supposed to be allowed to express themselves.
I suspect that in due course, if they appear before magistrates' courts, then the magistrates will be fairly lenient on that, and that may be a way out. But it was a surprise that those arrests took place today. Definitely. Sambo.
So much. Our correspondents there, our special correspondent John Cookson and Seyitan Atigarin, all our colleagues out there, and we wish you all the best. Just stay safe, enjoy the coronation. This comes just once in a lot of decades, and we just hope that you continue to enjoy the ball out there. Thank you so much.